Okay. Hi, and welcome to the NMAEA podcast. I'm Nadia, your host. And today I'm with the Data Divas, also known as the Data Committee from the NMAEA board. Okay, so we're here. We're in Las Cruces with the Doña Ana team, who is Barbara Robinson, Trisha Brainerd, Guillermina Alvidres, and Shiva Hardy, and of course, Jamie Trujillo. Welcome, everybody. So, the Data Committee. Data or data? What do you guys prefer?
Data, numbers.
Numbers. Data, numbers. What about the rest of you guys?
I say data.
Data. Okay, everyone says data. Okay, and Barbara is just whatever.
Yeah. I'm easy to please.
All right. So, NMAEA has a couple of committees. Jamie, roughly how many committees do we have?
There are 4 committees.
Okay, so we have 4 committees, and data is something really interesting, and we haven't had one before. Am I correct?
That is correct. It's the newest committee.
Okay, it is the newest committee, and we never had any version of this before.
Correct.
Okay, great. So I'm on board. I know. I did my homework clearly for this episode today. Right. So, okay. So this is the newest committee. So when you say newest, what roughly this year, last year?
I believe our first meeting was last October.
Correct.
Okay. So that was at the tail end of 2023 at this point.
That was, near the end of the year. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So what exactly is the data committee? Anyone want to go first?
Well, the data committee is anyone who is interested in talking about data, learning about data, anyone who actually enters data into our databases. It's open to anyone interested in learning more about data or discussing data. Data visualization, storytelling, questions, learning from one another.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So learning from each other, that's what I stuck to. People who work in data, people who want to learn about data visualization. So that was the purpose of starting this, is to kind of network, build a community.
And, I think I would add that I think it's been a little bit of a feeling that the data professionals are on the sidelines a little bit, and that data is not as quote unquote important as direct programming and things like that, when in reality, data is so crucial. And so I think that this was the purpose of this, was trying to get a conversation going to start that conversation about the importance of data as well.
Okay. The importance of what is the importance of data?
Well, it kind of tells us how we're doing in our program. It's measuring the core values, that the core indicators, the MSGs, and et cetera. So it kind of tells us how we're doing.
Okay.
Also with that, our data is presented to our legislators for funding. It's important. They need to understand or know the impact that we have on our communities.
I really think you hit the nail on the head there, Barbara, with that, because the people who know about the data right now are the people in the field. We want to make sure that those outside of the field know what we do. And data is how we tell that story.
Okay. Do you guys want to add anything to that?
I was just going to say, it's one way to add to the story.
Mm-hmm.
And in some ways, it's about funding. That's how we expand who we serve. And that's how our learners end up with family sustaining employment. And there's different kinds of data. Oftentimes people think of numbers as the only kind of data, but when we talk about storytelling, data are words and, lived experiences.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I like that. Yeah. So what are the data committee's goals?
Our goal is to promote understanding, analysis, training, and support for all data users.
And that means everybody. Anybody is welcome to be part of this committee, whether you're a director or you're an administrative assistant even teacher.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I think that at least personally, my goal is to elevate data and to, I see kind of what you were saying, Jamie, that the user or the person who's putting the data in, the data techs, tend to get overlooked in professional development. And, I think what's important to me is that we have attention to data and the hard workers who enter all of that data, who analyze the data, who visualize the data, who receive the data and give us more money.
Absolutely. Yes.
Are there any other goals? Like Trisha talked a little bit about personally why she's invested. What about you guys? Are there other reasons why you're invested in this committee?
Well, I personally would like to see more training opportunities offered in the future for data professionals through Propel. I think if we could have different levels of trainings that we could attend, I think that as the trainings are offered and people attend, they are going to evolve.
Shiva, I like how you said data professionals. Oftentimes I just use the word tech or technician, and we're all professionals. I like that, Shiva.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the reason, for you guys in New Mexico, so I guess that's all of our audience. Our professional learning is a competency-based system. So we use the term data professionals that encompasses all of that, right? So that encompasses the techs, the directors,
Right.
the teachers, anyone who really works in data and wants to learn more from it, right? And I think that Trisha, you really hit it, and Shiva is like, we're professionals and we have to think of ourselves as that, right? Not just as that kind of title, and not to sort of negative connotation on data techs. They do important work, but I think when we use the term data tech, we really do just mean like data entry.
Yeah.
But that's just one small part of what data does, right?
And there's still a professional, they bring a professionalism to the work also.
Yeah.
So
yes.
I think we need to adopt what Shiva said.
Yes.
I think we're going to start using that term.
Yeah.
Data professionals.
Yeah, I like the data professional committee. There you go.
And
Yes.
just because you mentioned the competencies, I will just say really quickly, because Tina brought this up this week, that as far as we know, nobody has data professional competencies other than us. So this is a first.
Yeah, and
trailblazers.
As part of Propel, we've done some research just looking at other professional learning systems in different states, and every state is at such different levels. And some are more far along than us, some are really behind. But one thing that we have not really found was data competencies, which was very surprising because it is a part of so many different roles.
It is.
Yeah, so that's great. So why don't you guys tell me what are some projects the data committee is working on?
Well, we have our data corner coming up very shortly, working with Katia Bacchus.
Yeah.
NMAED. She's going to offer a data corner once a month, the fourth Wednesday of each month. And I believe it is at 3:00.
3:00. Yes.
3 to 4. And that corner, she'll bring we've offered some topics that she will present to anyone who would like to attend. And this will be monthly.
That's exciting. So it is like a once a month support, right? Would you say it's like a professional learning community if you guys are learning with Katia, or what do you guys think of it as?
I think it could turn into that. This is one of those things where anyone can join. So if we get a regular viewership, a regular set of people who are attending, I think it can definitely turn into a community of practice.
Thank you. That was the word I was looking for. Community of practice. Yeah.
And it is going to be recorded. So it's, you don't have to attend live. It's just that if you do attend live, then you have the option to ask questions, because it is a conversation. It's not just a presentation. I got to tell you, I love Katia's presentations, and I feel myself very rapt by her when she talks. But, that is not really the point either. It's to have a two-way conversation, or maybe a many-way conversation.
Hopefully multi-way conversation. Yes. Yeah. multi-discussion. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, okay, that's a big step, having those monthly data corners. Is there anything else that you guys have been working on?
I would really like to see us have a data track at the NMAEA conference at Mountain Plains AEA, so that we encourage data professionals, Shiva, to attend those. And it's not just focused on instruction or administration. It's a more inclusive conference. So I'd like to see, we've talked about that, and I'd like to see us bring that to fruition.
Are you guys, is that what you guys are gonna kind of push? Yeah,
Yes.
at these meetings. Excellent. Yes. Guillermina, what were you gonna say?
Yes, I would like to say that this interview, it is part of the projects, right? And we started this data committee recently. So this is part of letting people know, people from our program know that we exist.
Oh yeah. There you go. So awareness of the committee itself and trying to build that sort of community. Shiva, were you gonna say something?
Another thing that we've been our most recent meeting, we were discussing how to communicate what the data means. Like it's not something that's in an island by itself. It's integral into the entire program, the entire adult ed program. And so, how do we visualize it? How do we present it for people inside and also outside of the organization, and then interpret it to what does this mean?
And I will just add to that, that's one thing that makes this committee unique, is that we are learning from each other. And we actually dedicate the last bit of every single meeting to learning about type of data visualization. And Trisha's been leading that. And we've been, like Shiva was saying, we just started that at our last meeting, but it was very informative. And so I really look forward to that continuing.
Oh, okay. So can you guys tell me a little more about that? What does that look like? So Trisha's leading. Yeah, Trisha, what are you doing? Tell us.
So we took some of the things that you presented to the legislature. Is that
Yes.
right?
Yeah, those were fact sheets.
Yeah. And so then I took, it was a quote from a student. And so what I kind of walked people through was kind of how it looked, the way that it was presented. And then I changed some things and changed some more things and changed some more things. And so through that kind of scaffolding, got to the point of what we kind of all agreed was something that stood out. And so part of what you're trying to do for the brain when you're presenting data is to not make the brain work so hard. So you want to lead people to what the data means. That's different than when you analyze data. When you're analyzing data, you want to present it in kind of an equal way, so that the at least in terms of kind of collaborative meaning making, that's what you want to do. But when you're presenting that data, you're presenting it with conclusions in mind and results. And so that you want to do that differently than when you're presenting it for analysis. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I think so.
Can I just pick up something when you're talking about kind of learning from each other? It's a hard profession. You're always learning. I mean, the database changes all the time. You're always digging into what, as we enter data, I don't even remember what we were working on, but like the word, what does this word mean? And you can't go by what the field name is, because a developer created that and a user who's in the field is interpreting that. And so I can interpret it different than Guillermina can interpret it different than Barbara can interpret it. And so you have to work to standardize all that. That takes a lot of time and effort.
It sure does.
It does. And I don't think generally we don't always have that time. We are learning, but we don't get a chance to reflect on that generally in the field. I feel like we just have to learn and then we immediately do it and then we move on to the next thing, and we just don't get that chance to stop and be like, wow, I learned all this stuff in like a year.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Yeah. We're hoping, through Propel, through professional learning, and hopefully these just opportunities for data people to really, learn, and that is just part of that reflection piece comes out. I don't know, that's my dream.
Absolutely.
Especially for professional learning, is that we really get to just appreciate ourselves as professionals and grow.
That could be another one of our projects. Celebrating ourselves.
Yeah. So how can adult education practitioners get involved with their program data? And the reason why we ask this is because this kind of came up informally quite a few times where people don't really know how to always access data, especially some teachers. As a teacher in an adult ed program, I didn't really have access to data unless I asked for it. And sometimes I didn't know what to ask for. Or, it would be one time I had this experience. It was not in New Mexico, but this experience where someone came up to me, one of the supervisors was like, one of your students just stopped taking the test halfway through the test. Figure it out. I was like, go see what happened. This is bad. I was like, what?
Wow.
And that's kind of and that's when I learned that I was supposed to be talking to them about the TABE process. No one told me. They hired me and threw me in a classroom, and no one told me that I was supposed to be talking to them about test taking and what it means. And the student just, they just had a freeze out. That happens.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like if I had that opportunity to really communicate to them why this is okay, and this is, it's easier said than done, but it doesn't mean that, this test means you're going to fail. You can't fail. Right. And
Right.
it's just a little anecdote, but I always think about that. I'm like, wow, if I understood data better, if I could communicate that to myself, then to the student, and then we can work together and we can build a program and blah, 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 whatever. Yeah. So anyway, back to the question. How can adult education practitioners get involved with their program data?
Well, I have an answer for that.
Oh, okay.
One of the things that we do is we gather as a group for our program meetings periodically, and the data review is part of the standard agenda. So there's some kind of a data review and data report given at each of these meetings, and there's discussion around the data so that people know, okay, here's how we're doing, and this we could do a little better, and this we've fallen off the wagon, and wow, we're really good in this area. So I think that this really creates an opportunity for people to get involved with what the data is showing us.
Oh, okay. So a kind of part of a staff agenda, right? All
Right.
staff meeting.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a great idea. What about you guys? What do you think?
To follow along with Shiva, I think we've been really successful with bringing all the professionals within our program together with meetings. Trisha has set up regular meetings, monthly, maybe weekly, and bringing the data in so that everyone can look at the data, but not only that, ask questions. How does this impact my role as an instructor, my role as an administrative assistant, my role as we even ask the question, how does it impact the student? What can we see from the data that can give us some basic understanding of the student, where they're at, what we need to do to help the student and the outcomes.
That's really great because there's such a variety among programs as to the amount of conversations that happen around data, the access that people who are not data professionals have to LACES. So do you guys feel that really makes a difference in your own program outcomes? Do you feel like that has really, helped with, for example, post-test rates and things like that? Do you feel like that? Oh, Yadmina, you have something to say about that.
Yes, definitely. Lately, Miss Barbara, Trish, they shared, or say, number of students that they don't have post-assessment and they have certain amount of hours. We need to post-assess them right away. And we did. Why? Because they shared that information with us. So, okay, immediately instructors, so let's after this, you have to take the post-assessment. And then now we're in a very situation with post-assessments. So yes, that's great.
Shiva, I have that same question for you because you also mentioned, just the regular conversations. So do you feel like it's made a difference in your program performance?
I do, because the instructors are there and they're saying, oh, okay, so we need to do this.
Mhm.
So, they might change what they're doing a little bit based on what the data is showing.
Great. Now, of course, I worked for that program, so I agree. I just wanted to hear you say that.
Oh.
Okay, so we've mentioned some of this already. In fact, for the last half, we've already answered a bit of this, so it's okay to reiterate. But who plays a role in data?
Every single person in the program, right? Instructors giving the attendance lists, data professionals entering that information into the system, the analysis of that information. So I will say every single person in the program.
Every single person.
Everyone has a role with data.
I think outside the program, community members, legislators, it's so embedded in what we do that I don't know of anybody who isn't involved, who doesn't have a piece of it.
And that includes the students.
Yes.
It almost starts with students and, flows out from there. So, all right. So how can data be used to tell the adult education story? We've talked about already, how data tells the story. So how can it be used to tell that story? And how is the data committee exploring this?
We've been discussing this, and there's one thing that we've mentioned, which is that we could do a comparison. How are we doing at this time this year compared to last year?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Shiva, you're talking about context. When we present data, there has to be context around the data. Sometimes people throw out numbers, but without us understanding what they mean. And sometimes that's hard, but comparison is one way to do that. But context is key.
And I think along those lines, it's telling the story in ways that everyone can understand. If you use the acronym MSG, how many people are going to understand and not think that it is an additive that you shouldn't put in food? So, being able to say this many people got their high school equivalency credential, they got their credential, this many people got a job, those types of things, or this many people skilled up, they increased their skills. So, I can't say enough about how informative it's been for you, Trisha, to take a fact sheet that I made and to improve upon it. I loved it. I'm going to use this committee so much in creating our fact sheet for next year, because there's always, I think, a simpler way to tell the story in a way that's easy to understand. And I think that data can tell that very well. And so, as far as how the committee is exploring this, I think the way that we're doing this every month is just going to keep building and building so that we can do that. And we're ready for that every single year to improve it. I don't think it'll ever stop improving. We can always make it better. So it just gets us further and further to that point where we can tell that story and people will listen because they will see that it matters.
I think some of the other projects we mentioned, the data track at professional trainings, that's one way that I think we're exploring.
I love that. I want to jump on that because that does lead to our next question that Jamie's supposed to ask. So the question was where would you like to see professional learning for data professionals go? Yeah, that's too much professional in one sentence. But I want to add to that is so you say a data track. What might that look like? What different kinds of trainings do you think would really benefit data professionals? And I'm sorry we didn't email us ahead of time, but I was just thinking about it as we were talking.
Well, oftentimes the one way you can get data out of LACES is through Excel. You export it. This is no shade on Literacy Pro and LACES, but oftentimes a developer creates a report that they think is useful. That's not necessarily useful to the user or to the students or the legislatures. And so exporting into Excel or any other Power BI or Tableau or, any other, analysis software can be really helpful. So having a track where you do some Excel work. So even simple steps like how to copy and paste massive amounts of data, how you look up data from one spreadsheet to another spreadsheet so that you can combine the data in different ways, how you maneuver the data so it looks a little different. So I think that's one way that you do that. Visualizations is another thing. How you make the data and you turn it into evaluation and program improvement. Those are good pieces of the track.
Interesting. What about you guys? Do you guys like, ideal, right? Like what would a future like professional learning data track could look like at a conference?
I think keeping up, bringing in professionals that can provide training on the newest ideas, the newest uses for data. Also, maybe we had talked about it earlier this week, a data boot camp for data professionals.
Whoa.
Well, in our last meeting, we had talked about the fact that we have teachers institutes. And what if we had a one-day data institute? What if we actually did that? And it was, all of the data professionals teaching each other, learning from each other, just like we do for the teachers.
Whoa.
So that's definitely something that we
would
would
be
like
cool.
to explore.
I love the idea.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what I think about when you're talking about that is not necessarily from the company, but from each other, because we discover things in kind of hard ways. And so I really like your idea, Jamie, of learning from each other. I mean, the idea that you have with the Institute is that teachers are teaching teachers.
Yes.
And, data professionals are professionalizing data professionals.
Well, and it almost, hindsight's 2020 when you think, well, of course we should have this. But I remember, when the Teachers Institutes were kind of new, the idea was that nobody from the outside would be brought in.
Yeah.
That was the point. We would be learning from each other within the field and just spending that time together and networking together. And I really don't think that data professionals have that opportunity right now. Yes, there's the annual conference and we do have the regular monthly data trainings. And now we're going to have the data corners. But to be able to have a full day of workshop sessions, it would be really, I think, beneficial on all levels, not just for the data professionals, teachers, directors, everybody. So I really want us to explore that more because I think that we can make that happen. And I don't think that would be a far stretch for NMAEA to pioneer that.
Well, also just, going back to, my teacher brain is buzzing. It's just like one of the ways that we discuss the best way to learn something is to teach it. So like, it's not just beneficial for the people learning, but it's also giving skills and kind of confirming with the presenter, right? So like the presenter is also learning in a sense by teaching that. Mm-hmm. So that's really exciting.
And I feel like data professionals have a lot to share and want to share. Just need the opportunity. Like you were saying, we should be able to learn from each other on the easiest ways to run a particular report instead of taking so much time. Don't reinvent the wheel. Somebody else probably has done it
somewhere at some point that we didn't hear about.
Yeah. So finally, where can people learn more about the data committee?
Well, they definitely could become a member. Our doors are open. They can become a member. We meet monthly, the second Wednesday of each month from 1 to 2.
And just so you know, all of the committees are on the NMAEA website. If you go to the About section, it's just a drop down on the About section. The committees is there. And it shows for every committee the mission and the duties as well as the chair. And so any NMAEA member can be on a committee. You do not have to be on the board. So if you're interested, just contact the board chair, which would be Barbara. And her email is listed on the website. And we will get you into the committee. Always use more numbers.
People can also tune in to these new data corner meetings monthly with Katia. And there's going to be a lot discussed. And it was all based on the original data survey that was sent out to everyone in adult education. So there's going to be a lot discussed, and it's going to be really exciting.
I agree completely. Yes.
Absolutely. I just wanted to thank you guys for taking the time to just come on, talk about what you're passionate about. And it's so exciting to see what professionals in New Mexico are doing. And that's my favorite part of this job, really. Is there's so much we can learn from each other and just having new avenues for that. And I really am so excited, and I look forward to seeing what the data committee brings up. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.